Yesterday, what daf is this on? This is Chav Zayin. So yeah, a goofy yesterday. I'm an Aleph, and we're about how far down? About 10 lines down. The first one line is Gufa. So the issue came up yesterday about Chalitza Psula. Chalitza Psula means that it's not Mamish Pasal, but it's called a Chalitza Grua, because as Rashi puts it, anybody that he wouldn't be able to do Yibum to, so the Chalitza is not the greatest Chalitza. There is a Chalitza, but if you can't do Yibum, so then it's called a Chalitza Psula. Rav said yesterday that in the case of a Chalitza Psula, it's necessary to each brother should do Chalitza. The case being over there, okay, we had the case of 5 brothers that 3 of them were married to sisters and they died, and the Chalitza that's going to be done to the last wife, as the Gemara figured out over there, if both of them first are Achos Chalitza, so he wouldn't be able to do Yibum to them, so therefore you have to do Chalitza from both brothers. Shmuel argued and said you don't have to, that one, even though it's a Chalitza Psula, it's good enough, it doesn't have to go to each brother, even though it's a Chalitza Grua. The Gemara brought down afterwards Shmuel's din, which we're going to focus on today. That was about Chalas Lachayos, the top line on the page, Chalas Lachayos Lo Nifteru Tzoros, and Tzoros Nifteru Achayos. So just to get that on the screen, maybe a picture would help for that, just to get back on track. And that was it. Yeah, here we have it. Here you have 3 brothers, 2 of them married 2 sisters, but besides that, they also had a co-wife also. So one brother had a wife and also another wife who was a sister to his brother's wife. Here you have 2 brothers and married 2 sisters. Besides that, they also had another wife also. And the sisters are called Achos Ishto, right? And it's not an issue. He didn't marry them. When both of them died, both of them are Kuka. The simple shot would be Achos Kukasa. So they wouldn't be allowed to marry any one of them. Can't marry both of them, surely, because Achos Ishto, once he marries. If he doesn't marry the Zika, if he holds the Zika, then it's each one is the Kuka, and he wouldn't be able to marry either one of these 2 sisters.
Marry the other 2.
So you're not allowed to marry order to me, that's called a Tzoros. But the same way that there's a Chos Kukaso, so then it's also a Tzoros a Chos Kukaso. That the same way you're not allowed to marry this woman is considered, like the beginning of the Masechta, we had a Tzoros Erva. This is not a Mamash Erva because it's a Kuka might be only Rabbanan, even if you hold the Ezekiel, it's only Rabbanan, but it's a kind of an Erva that he can't marry this woman because she's a Chos Zukukaso, because the other one is also Zukuk with him, so he won't be able to marry the Tzara either. But what Shmuel said was that if he does, as far as a Chalitza Psula, so Shmuel said that if he gave Chalitza to the 2 sisters, it doesn't discharge the co-wives, and they'd have to get Chalitza also. If he gave Chalitza to the 2 co-wives, then he does not have to give Chalitza to the 2 sisters, they go free automatically. Chalas lachayos lo nifteru tzoros, chalas la tzoros nifteru achayos. That's the words of Shmuel. Is that good so far? And the Kashi is, Rashi right away told us the Kashi, told us the second terrace, but we're going to go through 2 truths today. And Rashi's quoting the second terrace. The reason why, if he gave Chalitza to the sisters, why it doesn't help for the Tzoros is because it's called the Chalitza Psula. Because if he would have, is he allowed to marry the 2 sisters? No, he can't marry either one of them because it's a Chos Kukasa. So therefore, it's called a weak Chalitza Psula, and therefore it doesn't discharge the Tzoros. They have to have Chalitza also. They'll have to give Chalitza to all 4 of them then. If he gave to the 2 sisters, not good enough. He has to give to the 2 Tzoros also. But if he gave Chalitza to the 2 Tzoros, so then it's enough, and he doesn't have to give Chalitza to the co-wives, to the sisters. The question is that the same way, I think someone asked it yesterday, I forgot, that Marsha asked it yesterday, that the same way that's not allowed to marry the sisters, is also not allowed to marry the Tzara either. For the same reason, it's a Chalitza Psula. If he would have done Chalitza to the sisters, it's also Chalitza Psula if he would have done it to the co-wives, because he's not allowed to marry them also. We said a second ago, he's not allowed to marry them. So then it's also Chalitza Psula. So if he gives Chalitza to the co-wives, why is it enough to discharge the wives? That's what we're up to. What? That's the end of the Gemara. That's going to be a long time till we get there. We don't know that yet. Rashi says the Gemara is going to say so later, but now we have to forget it, and we'll go in a different direction, and then the bottom of the page will come. Just like this yesterday, we just is that what do we do? Why is it not going? Oh, yeah. Sorry. Why is it not going? I'm not sure. Oh, okay. We had a brother that has two wives, and he died. And if he gave a get to one of them, he's not allowed to marry her anymore. He can't leave him anymore. So over there it says also that that's called the chalitza psula. And if he would give chalitza after he gave a get to her, he gives her a chalitza. It's called the chalitza psula because he wouldn't be able to marry her. So that wouldn't discharge the tzara. But if he would have married the tzara, if he gave chalitza to the tzara, then it does part even the one who got a get, because that's called the chalitza ksheira. It could be, for the time being, it could be that he's allowed to marry her also. I don't know enough yet. Yesterday we left it as a suffix. Today I looked at it a little bit more. I still didn't get it, but it seems from Tosfos maybe that we have to wait till we get to the fifth parak. But it would seem that if he gave a get to one, he still may marry the other one, but I'm not sure about that. Leave it on hold. Also, instead, if he gave marmor to one of them, marmor means that he gave a kedushin and it's not yet yibum, but it's on the way. But then he decided that he doesn't want, so it's not enough to give chalitza. He has to give her a get and chalitza. So if he gave her marmor, he did first marmor to one of them, and then he gave chalitza, that's called the chalitza psula. Why is it called the chalitza psula? Not because he can't marry, it's not because he couldn't marry her. On the contrary, he did marry her. He's getting close to marrying her. But since chalitza is not enough to cut it, he has to also give a get. So that's not enough to discharge, that kind of chalitza is not enough to discharge the tzara. You'd have to give chalitza to the tzara also. But if you gave chalitza to the tzara, it does discharge the balas hamama. So to see that inside, again from yesterday, 5th line, 10th line, I'm sorry, Gufa. If he gave chalitza to the two sisters, the co-wives are not discharged. But if he gave chalitza to the two co-wives, so then the sisters are discharged. And more examples over here. We'll just put in parentheses because it's not the main point over here, but it's the same idea. If he gave a get to his brother had two wives, one of them now the yavam gave a get to, he's not allowed to be miyaber anymore. So if he's going to do chalitza to her, it's called a chalitza psula. It's not going to part of the co-wife. But if he gave a chalitza to the co-wife, it will part of the one who got a get. And another case, we said that means that again his brother died. He had two wives. And one of them he did mamar, he's ready to marry her, he gave a kedushin, but then he backed out, he doesn't want to, he wants to give chalitza, so the chalitza he gives to the balas mamar is not going to discharge the co-wife, but because we said the reason is because it's not going to be enough to give a chalitza, he has to have a get also, so it's a weak chalitza, and it doesn't do the whole job, so therefore it's not going to part to the tzara. If you give the chalitza to the tzara, it does discharge the balas mamar. The Gemara now goes back to the subject about the two sisters, and it's going to be Moshe's question. Ma'ishana lachayos the lo niftu tzaros every lachos isha bezika, which is called lachos kukaso. Cholas tzaros nami lo niftu lachayos every tzaros lachos isha bezika. Tzaros lachos kukaso. Just to see that again, we saw it a second ago, but just to keep on. It says that if he would have done chalitza to the two sisters, it wouldn't discharge the co-wives. Why? Because it's a chos kukaso. And therefore, chalitza grew up because he couldn't marry them if he wanted to. So the question is that if he did chalitza to the two co-wives, also it shouldn't discharge the other wives, the other wives, because it's also chalitza psula. Because he wouldn't be allowed to marry her because it's tzaras achos kukaso. That's the most question. The Gemara is going to say two tirutzim just to map it out. This is the first teretz over here. Kasav Shmuel Ein Zika. And there's going to be a lot of surgery necessary. According to this pshat, It's not going to be simple reading at all. We're going to have to do a lot of surgery to figure out this chart. And just to point out that the next terrace is going to be down the page, just to get a hold of what's happening. There's going to be Rabashi Amar. That's going to be a second terrace. And this is what Rabbi Eliezer quoted before from Rashi. And very simple, a two-liner. Rabashi says that he's right, but Mishum de la Lima Zika L'Shavi L'Sara Kerba. That even though there is an Issa to marry Tzoros Achos Kukasa, but it's not as much as the Achos Kukasa himself. And that's a simple terrace, a two-liner. But now we're not going to do the two-liner, we're going to do a long terrace. And it has a lot of a few complications and a lot of surgery. First of all, the Gemara says, Kasav Shmuel Ein Zika. Shmuel, who said this statement, that if he did chalitza to the tzoros, it does pater the sisters, and the kasha was, he can't marry them either because it's tzoros achos kukaso. This statement holds Ein Zika. There's no such thing as Zika. There's no Zika. Which means the whole thing we're calling them the whole time, achos kukaso, no, there's no such thing. Ein achos kukaso.
So there's no issue. There's no issue.
There's no issue to marry the sisters either. The question is that the same reason you're saying now you can marry the tzoros because there's no issue of there's no zika, so you'd be allowed to marry the sisters also. Just to get that on the chart.
Not both. That's the rice.
Yes, but that
One of them, yes.
the Gemara said you can't marry if you can't marry the sisters, you can't marry the tzoros either. So the Gemara answers, there's no such issue as a chos kukasan. Ain't no such issue. You don't love zika, and therefore you can marry the tzoros. And the kasha is going to be in two lines. Then you can marry the sisters. Then the sisters also not us. Of course, you can marry both, but it's not called a chos kukasa. So there wouldn't be. You can't say that if he did chalitza to one, that he can't do that. That doesn't part of the tzara. Why not? It's a chalitza kshera. The same reason that he could have married her. He's saying the first one he does. He could have married her. He could have married the tzara. He could have married one of the sisters also. So that has to be answered. It doesn't answer the question yet. You just answered, how can you marry the tzaras? Because there's no zika. The Gemara is going to first say Shmuel holds yesh zika. So okay, he holds yesh zika personally, but he's talking about to the point of the mother where it says ein zika. So according to ein zika, if he does chalitza to the tzaras, it's a chalitza kshera. It's good because he wanted to, he can marry her, and therefore it's going to part to the co-wife. The kasha is obvious. So then he can marry the sisters also. First, the Gemara says Kasav Shmuel ein zika. The kasha is first of all, we'll put this in parentheses. This little one over here. Amar Shmuel yesh zika. The answer is he himself personally holds yesh zika, and then he wouldn't be able, if he married the tzoros also, you're not allowed to marry the tzoros. And if he did, it's a chalitza psula, and you have to do chalitza to the tzoros, to the sisters also. But he's born. It says ein zika. So now the question is obvious. If he did chalitza to the sisters also, why doesn't it pater? He's also a chalitza kshera. And the Gemara goes on to say what Rabbi Eliezer said, that there are 2 points over here and 2 stages. Here, 2 brothers died, and he has these 2 sets of wives that are falling to Yibum. The first one that he does is allowed to marry Yabamur also. If you hold Ein Zika, you should be allowed to marry one of them. This one or that one, he can marry whoever he wants to. The second, but once he chose to do chalitza to one of them, then it's true that he cannot do Yibum to the second one because it's called achos chalutzasa. Once he did chalitza to somebody, so for some reason that's worse. It's like achos grushasa, even though the whole thing is based on achos ishto, and here we're saying there is no achos ishto because there's no such thing as zika. It's not considered married, but we would allow him to marry the first one. We don't say achos grushasa, no such thing. But once he gave chalitza to one of them, he can't marry the sister because it's called achos grushasa. It's like achos grushasa.
Yeah,
Why?
choose one or the other. That's just one of the.
If you hold
that you can do yibum,
If he does Yibum, then he can't marry the second one. But if he does Chalitza, can he do Yibum to the second? Again, he cannot marry both of them. He can marry the first one? Yes, because ain't Zika. So he's allowed to marry the first one. If he gave Chalitza, he didn't marry, he gave Chalitza. Is he allowed to marry the second one?
Oh, the second sister.
Yes.
Oh.
So the Gemara says no.
No.
The Gemara says no, he's not allowed to. Maybe he needs explanation why not, but the Gemara says he's not. So when he marries the first one, it's a chalitza kshera, because he could have done Yibum if he wants to. But once he did chalitza, then it's true that he cannot marry the second one, and that chalitza is going to be a chalitza psula. Because it's going to be a chos chalitza, so that he can't do. Yes, good. So the Gemara is asking, I'm of you, okay?
No, why is it not if it's, oh, the first one, the first.
The one,
Rachel could-
let's say this side is the first. Maybe I should do the right side as Leah was first before Rachel. He did one of the brothers, he did chalitza to Leah.
Leah,
He
okay.
could have married her if he wanted to,
Okay.
because ain't Zika. He could have married her if he wanted to.
No.
But he decided to give chalitza. Is he allowed to now do yibum to
You're
Rachel?
saying no.
I'm saying no. Why? Because it's like a chos gushasa. The same way that you're not allowed to marry. Why you're not allowed to marry a chos gushasa? Because it's like two sisters. As long as she's living, it's asa. Even if there's really no more issa of chos gushasa than a chos ishta. And they were saying that's not called a chos ishta. But for some reason, once he does chalitza, we don't want to marry the sister. People are going to get confused and think you could marry a chos gushasa. So it's not asa to marry a chos gushasa. So the Gemara is going to say, again, if he did chalitza to the sisters, does it discharge the tzaros? So the Gemara is going to say, the second one, I understand that it's called a chalitza psula, because once they gave chalitza to one sister, to Leah, so then he can't marry Rachel. So it's a chalitza psula. But to Leah, how come it says that if he gave chalitza to the sisters, that the tzaros don't go free? This tzaros should go free. This sorrow should be discharged, because when he did chalitza to Leah, it was chalitza kshera. Does it make sense? Yes, good. Okay, I should go. Okay, thank you. So
But doesn't it mean that the other co-wife, when the one that was a chalitza psula, would not be free?
Right. That's good. The Gemara says
That's the whole point, that he should do chalitza to her, not to the sister.
fine. The way Shmuel says, if he did chalitza to the sisters, it does not discharge the tzaros. If he did chalitza to the tzaros, it does discharge the sisters.
And it only makes sense on one side, because the first one seems like it should be a good one.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I was going to ask that only makes sense on the second one. Let's say Leah was first, as the order in the Torah. Leah got married first, then Rachel. So if he gave chalitza to Leah first and then to Rachel, then it makes sense that Rachel's tzaros is not going to go free, because that was a chalitza psula. Because once he did chalitza to Leah, he can't marry Rachel anymore. So that makes sense that the chalitza he did to Rachel is not going to discharge. But the Gemara is going to ask, but Leah's tzara should go free. When he did chalitza to Leah, that tzara should go free because it was a chalitza kshera, since he was allowed to marry Leah. Make sense? Okay. So we'll see the Gemara inside. That's the Gemara's kasha. If he gave chalitza to the sisters, why don't the tzaras go free? Now, one of them I understand, one of them I don't understand. The Gemara says, "Bishlam Masar the Rachel Osi Pater Techivin the Chalas Laleya, but the Chalas the Rachel, Evelei Chalitza the Rachel, Chalitza Psula." I do understand why Rachel's tzara doesn't go free, because since he first gave chalitza to Leah and then he gave chalitza to Rachel, that chalitza to Rachel was a chalitza psula because he wasn't able to marry her anymore, because it's a chos krushasa, chalos chalitzasa. But Ella tzara de Leah tipater. But Leah's tzara should go free, because when he did the chalitza to Leah, it was a chalitza kshera, because he could have married her if she hold in Zika. So the Gemara says, you're right, and that's what the Shmuel really meant to say. My lo nifti with tzaros nami the kamar atzara de Rachel. We see that inside. That's to see that. Hold on, I'd like to get away to see the chart at the same time, but
Isn't there a way you can do that?
I don't know how to do it yet. But here, even though we read Shmuel's statement, seemed to have said that if you gave chalitza to the sisters, the tzaros plural don't go free. He didn't mean that. He meant to say if you did chalitza to the sisters, one of the tzaros doesn't go free. Only Rachel's tzara doesn't go free. He never meant to say that Leah's tzara doesn't go free. Leah's tzara does go free. The simple statement meant to say that if you did to the sisters, both tzaros don't go free. It doesn't discharge. And now the Gemara is saying it doesn't mean that. It means only one of them doesn't go free. Even though it says plural, the Gemara is going to say it means tzaros in this case. It doesn't mean two. It means, sometimes they call plural for a singular one. So just talking about what happens if these cases would happen. All these cases would happen. So the Gemara is saying at this point that when he gave chalitza to Leah and then to Rachel, Leah's tzara is discharged and Rachel's tzara is not discharged, because to her it's a chalitza psula, because he wasn't able to marry her after he gave chalitza to Leah.
So what happens to that?
So she needs a chalitza also. He gives chalitza to her also.
You can
I don't know.
get multiple chalitza.
Lev Yaakov?
If this is coming up further or not, but when it says soros in the plural, it could be if there were any other sisters. The first sister, the co-wife goes free, but any other sisters, co-wives won't go free. Like, let's say there's Leah and Rachel, but what about if there's Zilpah and Bila?
Could be that's including the Gemara's teres. The Gemara's the kasha about soros kamar. He says plural. He says soros. The soros don't go free. Why is they plural? Only one of them doesn't go free. The Gemara answers, Torah Zalma, it just means in the world, means cases like this, similar cases. Well, the Yaakov was saying, in this case, if you have more sisters, if there'd be more than only Leah or Rachel. Okay, now the Gemara is the Kasha, Yachi Chalatz, Litzaros, Nifteru, Achayos, Vatzaras Rachel mi Miftera, Vatanan, Aser Adam, Vatzaras, Krovas, Chalutzasa. What's the Kasha? Chalatz Litzaros, Nifteru, Achayos. Let's see that inside. It said that if he gave chalitza to the sisters, the tsaros don't go free. And now we said it means only one of them doesn't go free. But it says if he gave chalitza to the tsaros, to the co-wives, then the sisters do go free. And the kasha is going to be that also shouldn't be true. If he gave a chalitza to the tsaros, the sisters do go free, because it was the chalitza kshera. So if this surviving brother, the yavam, he gave chalitza to Leah's co-wife, the first thing he did was to give chalitza to Leah's co-wife. That was a chalitza k'sher. That's fine. Everything's fine. What?
It's supposed to be patus everybody else, right?
No, it says that Leah goes free. The chalitza to the tzara of Leah makes Leah go free, and then the chalitza to Rachel's co-wife makes Rachel go free.
Right.
And the kasha is going to be that shouldn't be true. He did chalitza first to Leah's co-wife, and then he did chalitza to Rachel's co-wife. Was he allowed to marry her if he wanted to?
Which one?
Rachel's co-wife. After he, I'm sorry.
Is the co-wife of a
I'm sorry. 1 second.
sister? Is that how you say it?
One second. If he gave chalitza to Leah's co-wife, and then also to Rachel's co-wife, it says that the sisters go free. I'm sorry, I have to have a Gemara open at the same time because I can't juggle back and forth. 1 second, please. Anybody wants to help, please chime in. We're all in this together.
Leah goes free, but not for him. Isn't that true? If he does chalitza to the co-wife, he can't marry Leah, can he?
I'm sorry, just my head is not here. But Saras Rachel, it means after he gave chalitza, the question is going to be, maybe I want to say something, please. I wasn't listening. Please tell me now.
No, that's okay.
Okay, he gave chalitza to the tzaras, to Leah's tzara, to Rachel's tzara. Then it says Leah and Rachel go free. That's what Shmuel said. The question is that true? If he gave chalitza to Rachel's tzara, could Rachel go free? Vatanan aser adam b'tzaras krovas chalutzaso. Tzaras krovas chalutzaso. Tzaras krovas chalutzaso.
Chalutzaso is Leah's co-wife, right?
No, chalutzaso
because that's the one that he gave chalitza to. That's the one he gave chalitza to.
Krovas chalutzaso. He gave, yes, I don't get it. So I'm getting stuck now.
He gave chalitza to Leah's tzara. So now the tzara from Rachel is a kroivas chalutzaso. Because when he gave the chalitza to the tzara from Leah, so
Tzaras krovas chalutzaso. I don't get it. Why? Well, the boy seems to ask that he's not allowed to. Wouldn't be allowed to marry the tzara of Rachel. Why is that? Why wouldn't he be allowed to marry the tzara of Rachel?
Rachel is krovas chalutza. So
no, who did he give chalitza to?
Leah's
Tzara, not to Leah, right?
Both sisters.
I got something wrong. I did before I went well. Now I'm not getting it.
Rachel is related to the co-wife of the one he gave chalitza to. Isn't that what it means? He gave chalitza to to her, and then Leah is a sister who's related to. Am I saying it funny? She's a relation to the she's a relation to the co-wife that he gave chalitza to.
He gave chalitza to Leah's co-wife.
Yeah.
Vitzaras, Krovas, Chalutza. So I'm not getting it. We're talking about that he gave chalitza to the tzara of Leah, right? Again, Yachi Chalatz Atzaras Niftiru Achayos. Why should that be? Atzaras Rachel Mi Niftiru means is Rachel going to become pater when he gives chalitza to Rachel's co-wife? What's the kasha? Fatanan Asur Adam with Tzaras, Krovas, Chalutzaso. Tzaras, Krovas. Not getting it. Yachi, the Tzaras come Shmuel with Sarah, the Rachel Shechol Sarachon, come. How does it go? The Gemara said that when Shmuel said, Chalatz, I think I got it now. The Gemara said, don't take this statement of Shmuel so literally. It doesn't mean that Chalatz le achayos niftiru tzoros. No, that's not true. Because Chalatz le achayos le yisar would be niftar. We're just talking about when it says Chalatz achayos le niftar, it means Rachel's tzara. Now it says, on the one that it says that it's not good, now it says that it is good. Chalatz le tzoros niftiru achayos. Tzaras. No, I'm sorry. Not getting it. Anybody? Chalatz and
You were
Tzaras.
saying both sides. That chalitza was on both sides, from both Leah's and Rachel's, and then the sisters were cut to. Now we're trying to say no.
Let's see Rashi over here. I see the Rashi is talking about, but I'm not getting it.
Start the Rachel lifted the first white line.
Before that, Yachi, 5 lines before it spreads. Yachi, the Tzaras to come Shmuel, the Tzara, the Rachel Shechol Sarachon, come. When Shmuel says that Chalsa leachayos lo niftiru tzaros, it just means the tzara of Rachel. So Chalatz the tzaras niftiru achayos betmiyah, the Chalatz the tzaras achos achalutza niftiru achos achalutza. Somehow it's supposed to say over here that if he gave chalitza le tzaras achos achalutza. Niftaru achos achalutza.
I have a chart. I have 2 charts with the I don't know if it would help or not, but would you like to look at them just to see if that helps you?
Not yet. Thank you.
Okay.
Here, it's supposed to be mashma that if he gave chalitza litzaras achos achalutza. For some reason, I don't see why. I'm not sure I'll reason to the words, but it's supposed to be mashma that if he gave chalitza to Leah first, and then he gave chalitza to the tzara of Rachel, Rachel goes free. I'm stuck because I thought it only says if he gave chalitza to the tzaras, but now that the Gemara is fixing it up, it doesn't mean the both of them. It just means if he gave chalitza to Leah. If he gave chalitza to Leah, and then he gave chalitza to the tzara of Rachel, then Rachel does go free. And that's the Gemara's kasha. The Gemara's kasha is that's not true. He's not allowed to marry the tzara. Once he gave chalitza to Leah, he's not allowed to marry the tzara of Rachel. That's called tzaras, krovas, chalutzaso. This is chalutzaso. Chalutzaso is Leah. Krovas chalutzaso is Rachel. And tzaras, krovas, chalutzaso is this co-wife. So that's the Gemara's kasha. You have to see in the words how the Gemara sees now that it says if he gave chalitza to Leah, the chalitza to Rachel will pater. The way I think I got it now. That in the beginning we thought that he's talking about everything's plural. That if he gave chalitza to the 2 sisters, that doesn't pater the 2 tzaras. If he gave chalitza to the 2 tzaras, it does pater the 2. But once we say it doesn't mean that. When Shmuel says that to the sisters, it doesn't pater. Leah's tzara does pater. So we're just focused on the second set, with this set. So when it says if he gave He first gave chalitza to Leah. Everything's fine. Then everything's good. No zika. He's allowed to do that. He can marry her. It's a good chalitza. And now it depends of these two. Which did he give chalitza? If he gave chalitza to Rachel, it does not pater the tzara, because that's a chalitza psul. He wasn't allowed to marry her now. Chos chalitza. But if he would have done chalitza to the co-wife, then he got a paters Rachel because he could have married her. And that's the Mars Kasha. No, he's not allowed to marry her. Because that's Saras, Krovas, Chalutzasa. Okay, that's the Mars Kasha. Sorry for that interruption. So that's the Mars Kasha. See that inside?
You can say from the Gemara, Yevamos, the Torah stuff to
Yes. If he's saying that everything's referring to Rachel and her tzara, by Leah and her tzara, everything's fine because that's mutter. There's no zika. He's allowed to marry her. That's fine. But then it's all talking about the second one, Rachel and her tzara. And it says if he was cholitz to Rachel, it doesn't help for the tzara. If he's cholitz to the tzara, it does help for Rachel. If he gave chalitza to the co-wife of Rachel, Rachel goes free. The words are strange here, Rashi, but it means is the giving the chalitza to the tzara of Rachel going to pater Rachel? But the person is not allowed to marry the co-wife of the relative of his chalitza, which means that once he gave chalitza to Leah, he's not allowed to marry the co-wife of Rachel.
So she's not going to go pater.
So she's not. So Rachel wouldn't help. It wouldn't help Rachel because it wasn't. It was a chalitza psul also.
He has to give her chalitza as well.
So now the Gemara is going to make surgery. Shmuel nami hiskel v'lo hiskel kama. Hiskel b'chayos lo yigmor b'tzoros. D'tnan asir adam b'tzoros krovos chalutzasa. Hiskel b'tzoros yigmor b'chayos. D'tnan what the adam b'krovos tzoros chalutzasa. So this is going to be now mamish different than the simple pshat in the words that we started off with. Here it says that Shmuel said if he gave chalitza to the sisters, it doesn't help for the tzoros. If he gives to the tzoros, it doesn't help for the sisters. Now it's going to be altogether a whole new pshat. Doesn't say that. He says which one did he give to first? Hischil b'achayos. If he gave the first chalitza to one of the sisters, so then it's not going to help even to give the tzora. Hischil b'achayos lo yigma b'tzoros. If he gave to one of the sisters, then it's not good to give to any one of them. It means he's not to give to both of them regardless. Like Peter said, that a person is also to marry the co-wife of the relative. Hischil b'achayos lo yigma b'tzoros. If he started giving to one of the husband, one of the dead brothers, to one of them, he gave one of the sisters, then it's not going to help to give to one of the two. He's going to have to give to both of the second, to both of them, because either one is going to consider chalitza psula. She's a chos chalutzaso, and she's tzoros krovos chalutzaso. Both of them are also. So to give to one of them is not going to have to give to both of them. But if he gave to one of the tzoros, if hischil b'tzoros, then what? Then he's allowed to give chalitza to any one of them, because it is mutter to marry krovas tzoros chalutza. So that's the line over here. The relationship between Leah and Rachel's co-wife, if he gave chalitza to Leah, she's called the co-wife of the relative of the chalutza. If he gave chalitza, let's say, to the co-wife of Rachel, the co-wife of Leah, Rachel is called the relative of the co-wife of the chalutza. And that's mutter. He's allowed to marry that. He's allowed to do. Why? We have to see later on. But that's mutter. Tzoras krovas chalutzaso is asur, but krovas tzoras chalutzaso is mutter. So that's what Shmuel meant to say. Shmuel meant to say, if the first one that the brother gave chalitza to was one of the sisters, then the other group, the whole other group has to get chalitza, each one of them. He's not allowed to marry either one of them. Both of them are chalitza psula. But if he gave the first chalitza to one of the co-wives, so then that takes care of that family, and the other family, any one of them will be good enough. Because not only is he allowed to marry the tzara, he's even allowed to marry Rachel. Because there is no issue to marry the relative, there's the relative of a co-wife of somebody who got chalitza. Any hands up? And if you take
your word for it,
if you take it as a fact that it's usher to marry the co-wife of a relative of a, call that the one who got chalitza. If Leah got chalitza, it's also to marry Rachel's co-wife. If Leah's co-wife got chalitza, it's mutter to marry Rachel.
Rachel or the co-wife?
Surely the co-wife, even Rachel. means he did chalitza to a woman. She has a co-wife who has a sister.
Is the reason because Leah is now Potter?
No, I don't think that's going to be the reason. Just take this as facts now. That if you look at
What happened to the sister issue? Is she still?
When we look at the words, what's the order of the chalitza depending on the order? If the tzoras is first or the krovas?
Which one did he do chalitza to? Did he do chalitza to one of the sisters, or did he do chalitza to one of the co-wives? Let's make this.
Yeah, and which one is which? In the tzoras krovas chalutza or
1 second.
or tzoras krovas chalutza or krovas tzoras chalutza?
Wait a second, make it a little bit more obvious over here. And this is also green. Yeah, okay, now we got it. Also, a person is not allowed to marry even the co-wife of the relative of his chalutza. That's the first case we said. That if he gave chalitza to Leah, he's not allowed to marry Rachel's co-wife.
How did we get the chalitza to Leva? Because krovas chalutzto means Leah.
We said
means one of the sisters.
That Hischel after the Gemara surgery, it says that Shmuel said if he gave to one of the sisters, he cannot give to any one of the other brothers' wives alone. He'll have to give to both of them. Once he gave chalitza to one of the sisters, he's not going to being able to do a chalitza kshera on the other brother. Both of them are going to be chalitza psula. So he has to do it to both of them because he's not going to be allowed to marry Rachel after. What's chalitza psula mean? Somebody can't marry. The chalitza is a shvach chalitza. It's a weak chalitza. So once he did chalitza to Leah, he's not allowed to marry neither Rachel nor the tzara. So he's going to have to give chalitza to both of them because each one's considered chalitza psula. That's the case. Hiskal b'chayos lo yigmor, even the tzoros. He can't do only one of them. Even the tzara is not going to be enough. It's not called a chalitza kshera. But if the first thing that the yavam did was to give chalitza to one of the co-wives, so then that co-wife surely his part. That's fine. That was great. And then he also he can marry any one of them. He's allowed to marry Rachel also because there's no issue to marry Krovas, Saras, Chalutzasa. He'd be allowed to marry Rachel. Surely the tzara. So any chalitza he gives to either one of them is going to part to the other one. Rabbi Yaakov, is that good?
Is that what I'm hearing?
Everything is Ein Zika. There's no Zika. Everything is Ein Zika. The whole Gemara said Ein Zika. If you hold Zika, everybody's full. If you hold Zika, then everybody is also to marry. Everyone's chalitza psula. And he needs 4 chalitzas.
Could you put the chart on again?
Yes.
And with the chart, we're going to say that what happened was he gave chalitza to one of the co-wives.
Hischil b'tzoros.
No, the chart, please.
The chart. Yes. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay, now in the chart, we're going to say the case is that he gave chalitza to Leah's tzoros.
Yes.
Okay, so now when it says mutter bekrovas, who's the krovas so far?
Krovas what? Read the whole sentence.
Krovas, tzoros, chalutzto.
Yeah, Rachel is the Krovas, Tzoras, Chalutzasa.
Krovas,
Tzoras,
Chalutzto.
She is the Chalutza. She's the Tzoras Chalutza. She's the Krovas Tzoras Chalutza.
I see. Okay, and the other way would be the krova would be the one that you do chalitza to.
He gave chalitza to one of the sisters, Leah.
And Rachel is a krova of her.
Krovas Chalutzasa, and she is Tzoras Krovas.
She's the Tzoras Krovas. Okay, thank you.
So that's what it said. That if he did chalitza to one of the sisters, then the other house he can't marry either one of them. So therefore, he has to give chalitza to both of them. If he gave chalitza to the tzara, then he'd be allowed to marry either one of the other brothers. There's no issue to marry Rachel either in this case. And therefore, whichever one he gave chalitza to is good enough to part to the co-wife, the other wife. All that was the first pshat. And the second pshat is easy. Rav Ashi, I think we hold this off. Rav Ashi Amar, a simple answer. La'olam kedika amrit. Umishum de lo alim azika l'shavye l'tzara ke'erva. Leave everything the way it is, the simple pshat, the way we had wanted the whole time, that if he gave chalitza to the sisters, it does not discharge the tzaros. If he gave chalitza to the tzaros, it does discharge the sisters. And the kasha was Moshe's kasha that he's not allowed to marry the tzaros either, because if you hold zika and there's a chos kukaso, then this is tzaros a chos kukaso. It's also not allowed to marry the tzaros. It's also chalitza psula. And the answer is yes, but it's not as bad. A chos kukaso is worse than tzaros a chos kukaso, and therefore, even though it's also technically he's not allowed to marry them, so it's called a chalitza psula, but it's not as bad. And therefore, if he gave chalitza to the co-wives, it does discharge the sisters. And that's how Rashi said right away. And that's Rav Ashi over here. And the more now is going to bring a brisa to support that. Tani kavasa de Rav Ashi, chalas lachayos lo niftu b'tzaros, halatzaros niftu b'achayos. That is the same thing. Mamash come out word for what the Shmuel said, and the Gemara says that the Rav Ashi's pshat is right. My time alav mishum de kasava yezika v'lo alim azika l'shavi l'tzara kerva. The reason must be because the way Rav Ashi explained that there is yezika, that's why the sisters is no good. It's called the chalitza psula afterwards. Chalitza psula doesn't part of the co-wives, but the zika to the tzaros is not so strong to make it almost like an erva, and it's called the chalitza ksheva. The question is, what do you see in the brisa more than Shmuel said? Is an Imam Shmuel's word come out, and just the Gemara says, don't you see Rav Ashi's right? And they might have a whole other pshat to explain another pshat in what Shmuel might have meant. So why does the Gemara say Tani Kavase? So Shmuel, so Taisha says that Shmuel, who is the brisa would have had to explain. How does Taisha say it? Taisha says over here. Tani Kavase, because you can't say these brisa l'shayich l'memed hischa v'lo hischa kamadim can't have a lefushay achbehedya. Shmuel, in the context of what I was talking about, maybe it's understandable about Shmuel might have meant this first pshat, which is complicated, but the brisa would have had to say more words in order to explain that. So therefore, the Gemara sees that the brisa is like Rav Ashi. But the Gemara says no. The Rav Abraham was going to say that it's not a raya. You're assuming that this brisa holds yezika, and even though yezika and the sisters are allowed to are not allowed to be married because of chos kukaso, but the tzaros, the zika, the tzaros is weaker. But it's not a proof. Hamani Beishamai that nam Beishamai yom atir na tzaros la'achin. Beishamai holds there is no issue of tzaros. Means even if they hold that there is a zika, let's get the chart again. Maybe the brisa says that to the sisters is a chalitza psula, to the tzaros is a chalitza ksheira. And the question is that if the sisters are also because of yezika, so then the tzaros are also because of tzaros erva. The answer is Beishamai. If you remember the beginning of the Masechta, we had that tzaras erva zasa, Beishamai holds tzaras erva mutter. That there's no issue of tzaras bito. There's no such issue. So maybe the reason why it's called kasher is only according to Beishamai. He holds there's no issue of tzara, but that doesn't show that even if you hold that yezika and there's also issue of tzara, still the tzara is less than the sisters. So it's not a raya. But the Gemara says, it should have pointed out that it's also to even have yibum, not only chalitza ksheva, but also could have done yibum according to Beishamai. That Rabbi Yochanan ben Nui a long time ago said that since the machlokes Beishamai is still in the first Mishnah, if tzaras bito is mutter, if you're allowed to do yibum, or you have to do yibum, or you're not allowed to do yibum to the tzara of a nerva, so Beishamai says you're supposed to do yibum, he still says you're not allowed to. So let's make it a kana to do chalitza when we're satisfied. So that's the case over here that you don't do yibum, only do chalitza. That they never made such a takana. Even though we thought it was a good idea, but it didn't happen. That even though originally they tried to make the takana and it didn't work, eventually it did work. To summarize the Gemara, there's a new concept called chalitza psula. Chalitza psula, the words itself is also very strange. That the more calls a chalitza psula, this means chalitza grua. It means that it's not possible, but it means that it's weak because it's somebody who couldn't do yibum. Somebody who couldn't do yibum, so that's called a chalitza. If you do chalitza, you're supposed to do chalitza, but it's chalitza psula. It's not. And then the question is that enough to part of all the brothers? If there are many brothers, does you need a chalitza from each one or not? Rav said yes, that you need a chalitza from each one. If there's a chalitza psula that you couldn't do yibum, you need a chalitza from each one of the brothers. Shmuel argues the Chorah and says no, you don't. There's also an issue that comes out about if there's a possibility to do a chalitza ksheva over a chalitza psula, do we prefer the chalitza ksheva over a chalitza psula? Shmuel seemed to say yes. Shmuel seemed to say on top of the page, the case of the chayos and the soros, if one is better than the other, do the good one and don't do the bad one. And that's the Gemara says, that was the whole Gemara's discussion now, by the case of the soros of the sisters. Why is it called the chalitza ksheva on the part of the Soros? Why is it any better than the Soros, than the sisters? And that the Gemara Tuma Halchin. Rav Ashi was simple, that you're right, that you're not Zika and you're not allowed to marry the Soros either, but it's still considered better. It's not as bad as the sisters themselves. The first shot was a little bit complicated, that it said that if you hold Yesh Zika, you're right, everyone's considered puzzle. The Gemara is going Ein Zika. And if Ein Zika, why not marry the sisters? You could marry one of the sisters, but only the first one. But the second one is going to be usher, not only her, even the Tzara. If you married one of the co-sisters, everything's fine. And even allowed to marry the co-wife's sister. Means if he did the chalitza to the co-wife of Leah, he's even allowed to marry Rachel, and then it'll be a chalitza ksheva. There's one thing missing in the Gemara that's very strange. We just mentioned it, that a page ago, which is a couple of days ago by us, but a page ago, the Gemara said that there's a new thing called Asa Lavato Mitzvahs Yivamin, which the Gemara over here ignores Lagamri, and that's a big kasha. That's a simple pshat. That even if you hold in Zika, the reason why you would be allowed to not be allowed to marry the sisters is because you're going to be mevatel the other sister from getting even because you made her into a chos sister. And that was a page ago, and the Gemara here seems to have forgotten about it. If you can go weiter, a few more minutes. So this came out mamash as a side point, and that was before we put in parentheses already, and now we're opening up the parentheses. Here it said that there's another case of two co-wives, that one is better than the other one. A simple case that a man had two wives. I mean, nowadays that have two wives is already a simple case in the Gemara. Like the whole thing is based on two, but nowadays you don't have that. But the whole yevamos here is not relative. Doesn't happen so much at all, in the way we're talking about it the past month. It has a brother, two brothers. One of them died. He had two wives, and surviving brother, the yavam, he gave a get to one of them. So it says that's going to be Genava Chalitza Psula because he can't do even to her anymore. So the Chalitza to that one is not going to part of the co-wife, but if he gives Chalitza to the co-wife, it does part the one who got a get. Or the second case about Balas Amama, that he did Kedushin to one of them. So it's not going to be enough to get rid of her now by Chalitza alone. He has to give her a get, also get and Chalitza. And therefore that's considered Chalitza Psula, and the other one would still need to get Chalitza. But if he gave Chalitza to the one who did not get Mamar, so then it patters the one who got Mamar also. And that the Gemara wants to know, Balas Haget, Balas Mamar, Ezamen Kodemes. Which one of he had two wives? Again, a man had two wives and he died. And then the Yavam, the brother, to one of them he gave a get, to one of them he did Mamar. And then he decides he wants to give Chalitza. He doesn't want it. First he said, I don't want one, he does want the other one. To one he gave a get, to one he gave Mama. And now he decides to do Chalitza. Is anyone considered better than the other one? That's going to be considered relative Chalitza Ksher. The way we ended up just now, Ravashi, he says that he also cares not only if it's could marry her, it's true. Indeed, both of these cases, both of them are Chalitza Psula. But the thing that Shmuel said, if one is better than the other, you give to the better one, that's called Yachasit. Relatively, it's a Chalitza Ksher, it's better than the other one, and that patters the other one. But if you gave to the one who's possible, it doesn't pass to the kosher one. So now the one wants to know, if you have two sisters, one is a Baal Saget, one is a Baal Samama, which one is better than the other one? Maybe it's more reason to be able to give the chalitza to her because he started the process by giving a get. It's a way to start the separation process. He gives a get and then he gives the gift chalitza. Maybe that's more reason why it should be a better one. On the contrary, the fact that he almost was marrying her, that's going to be a better chalitza. Amar Ravashi Tashma Mod Rav Gamliel Sheish Get Achaget Machamama Mamar Achaget. There's a mission. It's a sugya later on. We'll have to get to it eventually. But it talks about if the brother or many brothers or many wives, if you gave a get to one and then a get to another one, does the second get have any effect? He has many of the wives to do chalitza or even to. He gave a get to one, gave a get to a second one. There's a question over there if it has any effect. The second get, maybe after the first get, nothing else of the rest of the wives takes effect at all. But it says, even Rav Gamliel says, "Ein get achaget," but he says, "Yesh get mama achaget." If to one wife he gave a get, to one wife he gave to one of the wives of the widows of the yevamos, he gave mama. So he says, yes, the second one does take effect. If he gave to one of the wives a get and to one of the wives mama, or the opposite order, mama to one and then second one to the get, yesh get mama, yesh mama achaget. And the Gemara proves from that they're both equal. If one of them will be better than the other one, so then the second one shouldn't take effect. He get adif lo hani mama basrei, be mama adif lo hani get basrei. If one of them is better than the other, whichever one was first, the second one shouldn't take effect.
Mama, he wants to marry her. He says he's going to marry her.
He wants to marry her. He does kedushin. So then the second
Kedushin,
one,
but not
not even. And then once he does that, so then that is not allowed. Is not enough. If he wants to stop it, it's not enough to just do chalitza. He has to do a get also.
Outside.
So the Gemara comes out that both of them are equal. Nu Gemara, Amar Avuna, Amar Rav, Bezachal Yisivama, Shenachlu Lefnei Yavam Echad. Chalas Rishona, Putra. Chalas Shniya, Putra. So far, everything is simple. He had 3 brothers over here. 2 of them married 2 sisters, and the brothers died. The 2 brothers married the 2 sisters, and now there's one brother that has 2 wives. Simple case, two wives falling thing. If he gave a chalitza to one of them, she becomes mutter. Yes, for sure. He gave chalitza to the second one, she becomes mutter. He has 2. What?
To the shul problems.
Yes, and that's a side point that is like not without a chiddush over there. He has 2 wives that fell from 2 different brothers, that both of them need chalitza. So each one he gives chalitza and she's mutter. Fine. How about Mesa Rishona? Mutter b'shniya, ve'in self loma, Mesa shniya, shmutter b'rishona. Let's see, I have a chart for this one, I think. Here it is. Here you had 3 brothers, 2 of them married 2 sisters. Leah and Rachel, doesn't make a difference what the names are. And then, so these 2 sisters are waiting for Yibum or Chalisa from the brother, but one of the women died. One of the women died. This is the first time we have such a case, I think, that one of the women died. So the question is he allowed to marry the remaining one? It means when they died, so it's a chosku, so he wasn't allowed to marry either one of them. But now that one of them died, so that was no problem, because the whole reason why it wasn't allowed to marry is like a chosishta. Even a chosishta, once one of them dies, is a mutter. So that's going to be the question. Here, the Gemara will talk about which one died first. Which one died? The one who fell first or the one who fell second? Means one of the brothers died first, and then one of the brothers died second. Let's say this is the order. And then this would be the case that the one who fell to Yibum first died first. This woman, the second woman, when she fell to Yibum, as soon as she fell to Yibum, she couldn't do Yibum. Because as soon as her husband died, she's already a chos kukasa, because this one was still alive. So she was born into a situation where she couldn't do Yibum. Another case is a bit better, where the opposite happened. Again, a man had 3 brothers, 2 of them were married to 2 sisters, 2 of them died. But then the wife of the second one died. This woman, when she fell to Yibum, she was mutter to marry at that point. Then when the other brother died, then she became mutter to marry because she became a chos kukasa. And now she became mutter again. This is better than the case before. In the case before, the one that was Asa, she was born. She came into Yibum in a state where she wasn't allowed to do Yibum. That's worse than this case, where when the first one fell to Yibum, she was mutter to do Yibum, and then temporarily she was stopped because the other brother died and he had a wife, made her a chos kukasa, and then she died also, so she's not a chos kukasa. This case is better. So the Gemara reads, Rav says that even the Amar, who's talking Rav, Rav. So he said if the first one died, he's mutter to marry the second one, and it goes without saying that if the second one died, it's mutter to marry the first one. Why? The second, this case is surely mutter because it was once upon a time mutter. When she came to Yibum, she was mutter, and then she became temporarily yasa, and then she became mutter again. That's surely mutter. But Rav says even bigger chiddush than that. Even the one who came into Yibum in a state of Isser, the second one, that also when the other wife dies, she's going to become mutter. So what Rav is stressing here is not the main chiddush. The main chiddush is that even the one when she became falling into Yibum, she was usher to marry the Yavam. She also becomes mutter when he dies. That's the case again. This is the case. Rab's chiddush is saying that even this case is also mutter. Even though when she fell to Yibum, she was already usher, but now that the one who's in the way dies, she becomes mutter. And Rabbi Yochanan is going to say that this case is usher. Rabbi Yochanan is going to say this case is mutter because when she came into Yibum, she was mutter. Then she became usher. She became mutter again. But in the case where I'm sorry, is that true? Is that what I was going to say? I think so. Let's see the Gemara. So Rav said that even the case where the first one died, the second one is mutter, even though when she came to Yibum, she was already yasser. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Meisa Shniya Mutter B'Rishon. Over there, I agree that Meisa Shniya Mutter B'Rishon because the first one was mutter when she came to Yibum. But the second one, when she came to Yibum, she came into the state of Issa. It doesn't help that the sister died, because when she came into Yibum, she wasn't allowed to do Yibum. My time was Shekol Yibam Sheinani Kol Yibam B'Shas Nefila. At least the B'Shas Nefila, Yivam Yava Oleh Havezu Keishizach Sheish Labanim V'Asura. Since when she came to Yibum, she wasn't allowed to do Yibum, she becomes a brother's wife. That's not mutter to do Yibum, so she becomes Asa forever. And Rav argues and says that I don't care about B'Shas Nefila. Even though B'Shas Nefila she was Asa, since she became mutter, it's mutter. And the Master Kasha of Rav, Leslie Hasfara, Rav doesn't agree to that. Rav also is Machmir. Rav, Kalisha Sheinani Kori Ba B'Shas Nefila, Yivam Yavah, Rei Keishasach, Sheish Laban Vasura, Mamish word for word. Rav says the same thing. At the time of Yibum, she has to be mutter to marry the Yavam. But if she's Asa, it doesn't become mutter later on. The Gemara answers, the only time that we said Rav says is only if there will be a case of a deraisa. What will be the case? That you had two brothers that are married to two sisters. One of them died.
One of
the brothers died. At that point, he wasn't allowed to marry her, right?
Huh?
Two brothers married two sisters,
Yeah, right.
And one brother died.
Yeah.
Could the remaining brother do Yibum?
No.
No, because it's his wife's sister.
Right.
What if the wife dies?
You can't show.
No, because when she died after the brother. Somebody's brother died,
Right.
and then his wife died. So when his brother died, he wasn't allowed to marry his sister-in-law because it's his wife's sister. And then his wife died. It doesn't become mutter because B'Shas Nefila, since when she fell, she wasn't mutter. The sister-in-law wasn't mutter. Maybe the child might have something on that, or something like that.
That's it.
A simple case? I don't know if I have a simple case over here. No, I don't have any simple cases. No, okay. But in the case where Rabbi Darai said that two brothers married two sisters,
She was also.
two brothers married two sisters, so then no simple cases. Okay, no simple cases. Okay, two brothers married two sisters, so then since when the brother dies, it's usher. So then it's just the right. So then it's usher even after the wife dies. But over here it's only a Rabbana. Told of Zekuka. Here you have the case where there are three brothers, two of them died, and over there it's only a question of Zika. When the reason that it became usher is only a Rabbana. This is Zika. Here the Gemara says it's only Rabbana, and therefore Rav holds in that case it's mutter. Rav holds even in that case it's usher. Okay, a little hard hurdle today, but Bez Hashem will persevere. Bez Hashem. Tomorrow's Friday, only Daf Yomi. 11. So now we finished Shir on Pesach and only Daf Yomi every day from 11 to 12.
Daf Yomi at 11.
Daf Yomi at
Thank you
11.
very
Yeah.
much.
And what's the Shabbos is going to be what? 10:45. Okay. Yes, everybody. Thank you. Sorry for the hurdle today.
Okay.